Hello, everyone, and welcome to Show Me the Money, the impact of streaming fraud. I am Rosemary Cipriano. I'm our senior content writer here at Human, and I am so excited to be joined by my friend and colleague, Francis, who will be here to talk to us all about streaming fraud in the audio space. So, Francis, why don't you introduce yourself, what you do here, and I know usually we do like your favorite robot or your favorite human here at Human, but I'm putting a twist on it for this live only. And I would like to hear who your favorite human in music is.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Rosemary. My name is Francis Kitrick. I'm on the solutions engineering team here at Human. So pretty much help integrate with customers and also come up with optimal solutions. I would say my favorite human in music right now, I'm going to go with Dolly Parton because she's always she's always associated with like very wholesome headlines, which is refreshing for once, as opposed to scandals and other things that you often see in the news. So I'm going to go with Dolly Parton. And of course, she has a great voice.
I love that answer, Francis. Dolly's really like having a moment right now. So I see.
Yeah, I think, and she just got inducted not too long ago into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. So
about damn time. She deserves it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Francis. I can't wait to dive into all of this. So if you guys have any questions, those watching, post a comment. We'll try to get to it at the end. Or any feedback or anything. We'd love to hear from those who are watching. And hopefully you learned something from this. I know I definitely will. So today we're going to talk about something I personally love talking about, which is streaming fraud. Don't love streaming fraud, but love talking about it. We'll discuss what it is in the audio space and what that could mean for platforms and even advertisers alike. So let's get into it, Francis. In Human's 2023 Enterprise Bot Fraud Benchmark Report, we found that the media and streaming industry was the #1 industry most targeted by bad bots. Not the greatest thing to be #1 in. And specifically, we saw that 57% of traffic to media and streaming online businesses was from bad bots. Yikes. So let's start super basic here. Why are streaming platforms, and in particular music streaming platforms, such an attractive target for fraudsters in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. So kind of just like how the title of this is, right? Show me the money. Fraud is more often than not going to follow the money. That's why they're doing it, for monetary gain. So anytime there is a surface or a platform or an app or site or anywhere where there's real dollars tied to some sort of measurement, then you're going to have bad actors that are going to be looking to exploit that. So more often than not, they're artificially or inauthentically inflating metrics for gain, to take advantage of some sort of monetization model that might exist.
So let's get into the threat models that fraudsters actually use. What are the most popular threat models for fraudsters, and how exactly do they work?
Yeah, well, there's several methods or techniques that bad actors can use. Oftentimes there's a combination of multiple smaller attacks being carried out, but definitely if you want to roll it all up into one big thing, I think one of the most popular threat models that's often talked about and alluded to would be stream manipulation, which is a popular term for it. Sometimes it might be referred to as spin fraud, stream fraud. But with stream manipulation, there's going to be oftentimes a bad actor who is going to be using bots and automation to kind of inflate or to drive up the number of plays, or to increase some sort of other metric that's tied to that. And so that then it could lead directly to more monetary payouts, or it's a way to kind of artificially inflate your own ranking. So you want to game, maybe there's like a ranking algorithm for, top trending songs or artists, and you want to try and get on that list. So those would be reasons and methods for achieving that.
That's really interesting. Not too long ago, a couple of years ago, in one of those like wrap up end of the year, this is what you listened to this year. I saw that one of my top played songs was a song from Dirty Dancing, which I have nothing against Dirty Dancing as an album or as a movie, but did not listen to it that much to be like my number one song. And I realized that I think a bot or someone was listening to the music on my account when I didn't realize it. Changed my password and everything to make sure it didn't happen again. And it has been an issue since, but would love to know why Fraudsters really wanted Dirty Dancing to be number one that year. So many years later, too.
Yeah, that's a great example that kind of looks at the multiple attack vectors. So of course, as I mentioned, right, to a bad actor, the overall goal is to inflate the number of listeners or plays. That could be done through a variety of methods. Bots can be used to register and sign up for new and fake accounts, and then they try to control those accounts to go listen to certain songs or certain playlists. In other cases, what you're describing, it could possibly be a case of account takeover or hijacking, where there are pre-existing accounts that attackers will target, and then once they're able to gain control of them, then of course they can use those to listen to some songs or to inflate some other metrics. So that often is those often go hand in hand, is using bots and automation to not just create fake accounts, but to potentially even target existing accounts. Right, you'll often see in the news there'll be headlines about a data breach from so and so, and right, a lot of times, even though it's not the best security practice, people will reuse passwords. So if your password gets breached from one particular site, if you're reusing the same password, then an attacker could get into your account that's somewhere else, and then they're able to do whatever they want with it until you're able to recover it.
Yeah, I definitely learned my lesson about not reusing my passwords many times over again. And I'm sure a lot of people listening also feel the same way. I want to zero in on the impact of streaming fraud on advertisers specifically. $12.82 billion is expected to be spent on audio ads by 2027 in the United States alone. Billion. It's a pretty crazy number. That's a huge chunk of change. Advertisers rightfully see an opportunity with audio ads. We know this, but how does streaming fraud impact the effectiveness of those ads?
Yeah, like you said, that's a huge amount of money, and like we said, money is always going to be the main motivation or target here. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a pretty direct relationship or correlation with stream manipulation and the effectiveness of advertising. So if we're going with the previous example, I mean, if a streaming platform is being visited by a fake user or a bot, and that bot is getting songs served to it or played to it, then it's a pretty safe assumption that any other advertising or any other content that's served along with that is also going to be simply served to a bot and not viewed by a human. So I think it's pretty safe to say that that would be a fairly ineffective ad spend, or the campaign would not nearly be as effective, since a certain percentage of those impressions are going to be viewed by non-humans.
Right. It's more than just a bot listening to music or a podcast. It also just like makes the ad totally useless because a bot can't purchase the product or participate in whatever an advertiser is wanting to go for. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the early aughts of CTV, no?
Yeah, that's a great point. We've seen this very similar pattern with the rise in popularity of CTV and that type of streaming. where audio has a huge amount of listeners, and as well, and with that comes the demand for advertising and other ways of monetizing that target audience and those eyeballs. So yeah, just like we saw a lot of bad actors trying to take advantage of CTV, we see bad actors trying to take advantage within the audio space. So that could be, there's multiple things there. It's not just bad actors trying to send bots to listen to music on the major streaming platforms. It can be also something where there's a mobile app or website that's created, and the purpose of that app or website is to basically falsely misrepresent itself in order to kind of sell audio content, because the audio might be more desirable to advertisers, so it's more likely to to get money thrown at it. And so we see this problem essentially affecting two industries simultaneously, where at the same time that a bad actor would be siphoning money away from legitimate artists on a platform, it's also siphoning money away from legitimate advertising campaigns. That is basically that money is leaving the advertising ecosystem, as opposed to going to staying between legitimate advertisers and publishers to getting paid for their content.
Right, right. And I feel like we've seen this a bunch with a lot of our Satori team's research. Many of their takedowns have to do with this.
Yeah, I think in some of the recent research we've done specifically with audio within the programmatic ad space, I think we see around maybe 1 in 20 audio bid requests can be considered fraudulent or misrepresented.
Wow.
So definitely a decent amount.
Yeah, it's a good thing we're talking about it then. So we've touched around this a little bit, but this series is called Show Me the Money for a good reason. We want to get to the root of how fraudsters actually make money from these schemes. I feel like that gets lost a lot of the time in these conversations. It's scary, yes, but it's also like, well, we know that they do it for money, but why? So how exactly do fraudsters make money from streaming fraud?
Yeah, another great question. Since that's what we're talking about, the money. There's a variety of ways that the fraudsters can try to get paid or make money. In some cases, a bad actor might not necessarily be making money directly off of a streaming platform or even an advertising campaign. They could be kind of so a classic case would be a bad actor who is kind of presenting themselves as a marketer or some sort of affiliate partner to an artist or someone that's closely related to the artist or the source of the music, and they kind of go up to them and say, "Hey, you give me X amount of money, and I can bring you, I'll bring you X amount of plays to your songs, to your album, or whatever." And it's kind of like the age-old adage, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There's always, oftentimes we see services advertising, deals that seem too good to be true, and so it's easy for artists to maybe kind of fall into the trap of giving these types of services money, when in fact, the money that these bad actors are receiving, they only need to spend maybe a fraction of it to employ some bots or some other automated service that they might have already have the infrastructure set up for, and then they'll use those bots to target whatever content that the artists might have, and in some cases it might work, but oftentimes if the streaming platform realizes, hey, these are all fake listens, it can end up hurting the artist, because maybe those plays or those listeners will eventually get taken away. But basically, there's an exchange of money for a certain amount of traffic, because the assumption is that traffic going to your music is going to lead to an even greater payout, whether that's directly increasing, a royalty payout, or if there's a certain target, an audience number that you're trying to reach, so that you can maybe just get to the next level of, your music exposure, then oftentimes that's where the money is being sent towards. And in other cases, I mentioned kind of the falsely represented advertising. So it could be, a bad actor creates an app. That app is then trying to sell ads supposedly on audio content. And so they would potentially be receiving some sort of, revenue share payout based off of the impressions that are driven from the app. So I know I went a bit lengthy there, so hopefully that dives into it a bit more.
No, that's okay, because you really are showing like how complex this problem is, and how there's actually many different ways in which a fraudster makes money from this, and it's a complex problem. I find it interesting that like there's kind of like services around this. There's services of people who purport themselves to not be fraud, right? And targeting artists to try to get them to pay for them to have bots go and listen to their music or whatever. I feel like that just like must really suck for the little man, right? Like the independent artist or the person who's just starting, who needs to get people to listen to their music, and they see these services and might fall victim to that without knowing better.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Right? There's again, it's audio streaming is hugely popular. There's a lot of desire for it, and like you said, it can be tough to make it as an artist and to get your name out there, and so it can be easy to even unknowingly kind of get involved with these stream manipulators, so to say. So it definitely it doesn't hurt. It doesn't benefit anyone in the long run, and it definitely hurts other artists who have kind of legitimately gathered their followers and their listeners using more authentic means. So definitely I see that as like kind of the biggest risk to the industry, is just having music. I think is inherently a very human thing, and so to kind of have anything, whether it's money related or just about the music, kind of artificially influenced, is not something anyone wants to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Like bots can listen to music, but they're not really going to become fans, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I want to make sure that streaming platforms walk away with something they can tangibly do today, maybe to protect themselves from attacks. Because to be frank, if I put my consumer hat on for a moment, which very much a consummate consumer of music, it makes me lose trust in a platform when I find that my account has been hacked. Trust is everything on the internet today, and it's hard to come by. So what is something a streaming platform can do today to better protect their customers' accounts? Is there something tangible they can do to boost their protections?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you mentioned, it's a multifaceted problem. So there's no just one single thing to do. But definitely a top thing, working with a dedicated vendor like Human, to help mitigate digital abuse, whether that's at the account sign up process, the logging into the account, or even the activity once they're logged into the platform and streaming music or performing other actions within their account. All of those can be protected. There are also other actions that companies can take that involve more of a collective protection. So collective protection is kind of a concept that we have here at Human, where an attack on any partner can become a defense for everyone else. So of course, that the key element to collective protection, of course, is having everyone being committed to fighting against the same bad actors. Like I mentioned earlier, bad actors are basically siphoning away money from all legitimate players in an industry. So even if it might not seem like today you're directly affected, overall, that is money that's leaving the ecosystem. So any legitimate player within the space is going to be, that it's going to be to their advantage to kind of be part of such a collective protection. So yes, at some point that does include being able or willing to share information, probably on a limited basis, because there are some privacy concerns as well. So with that comes, trust and transparency are definitely paramount. And we also, you want to look to collaborate beyond just the streaming platforms themselves. Artists and their organizations, they have their own websites, they have their social media platforms that they're on. Really, anywhere that they're active digitally is somewhere that they could be, they could be facing an attack or some sort of other abuse. So being vigilant, working with, a specific vendor for digital abuse protections, as well as, keeping an ear to the ground and seeing what other people are saying, is definitely, I think, the main things to try and do.
It's knowing that it is a problem and starting to make those steps to protect everyone.
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen changes in the industry where what used to kind of be, maybe something that no one really wanted to talk about or even admit. Now it's much more of a, hey, okay, this is a problem that affects the industry at large. So everyone should do what they can to kind of work collectively to better the industry as a whole. So that applies to both the advertising and the music industry alike.
Amazing. So we're going to kick it to some audience questions. I see that there's one commented here. What's the best way to make sure we keep the music human? Which I feel like, Francis, this has to do with your shirt, which you did not show everybody. An amazing shirt, limited edition. I don't even have one.
Yeah. Well, like I said, as an individual consumer, definitely, stay on top of your accounts, right? Like Rosemary mentioned, don't reuse the same passwords. Follow good account hygiene so that you're not potentially letting your account get hijacked and used for nefarious purposes. So update your passwords, use a password manager. There's multiple options there. Support artists as legitimately as you can, right? Like don't try and if the opportunity arises, don't try to do something that might skirt the proper avenues. It makes me kind of think back in the day when, right, like ticket scalping used to be an issue, right? So it's like the more people pay scalpers for tickets, well, then the scalpers are going to keep doing it, right? If artists keep paying money to these so-called marketing services that are going to just use fake bots, then those services will continue to exist. So it's kind of an example of make sure that you're able to as much as you're able to vote with your wallet, and don't kind of participate in anything that seems to be part of that manipulation.
I mean, we could do a whole other one about ticket scalping, and I think we're going to have to, Francis.
I'm not even getting to the digital aspect. I'm just, speaking purely about, like ticket stubs outside the
people
stadium.
outside the venue. Wow. I mean, you still do see that. I always wonder if that's actually helpful to that person or not, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
We have another question here. Any suggested practices related to user agents for publishers and or podcasters?
I'm not too sure if there's a specific question about user agents. Typically, user agents are one of numerous pieces of data that are used to identify the device being used. So maybe there's if whoever asked this can clarify a little bit, but typically, user agents are either going to kind of self-declare what it is, but in other cases we do see bad actors will sometimes try to spoof and use a particular user agent that is supposed to mean one thing. So perhaps that's what the question is getting at. But I would say in general, if you have a full user agent available, that's typically what we want to use, as opposed to maybe hard coding some custom user agent that might not be, parsable or something that might be registered on an industry list so that it can be identified properly. For example, there's not every bot is a bad bot. There are known crawlers and spiders that are legitimate uses of bots. So perhaps if that's what the question is geared towards, make sure your good bot is properly self-identified.
It looks like we have a follow-up to the question. So, for example, does the pub need to be more specific about the endpoints their content is ad served from?
Okay. Yes. I mean, in general, we would want to know, as much the information about the device should be as close to what the real end user is using. So, if the person listening to the song or if the ad is being served to a user that's in a app XYZ, then that's what should be properly represented, whether it's by the name of the publisher or the user agent. There shouldn't be any sort of trying to transform or try to override where the user is actually kind of interacting with the song or an ad.
Great. Thank you so much, Francis. And thank you, Rodney, for asking questions. I have one more for you. We had this whole discussion. How pervasive is streaming fraud?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's certainly pervasive enough that, many articles have been written. Many companies have now, come out and have given, public statements or kind of given their overall stance on where they, how they view it. Basically, it's pretty much against policy across the board. And yeah, I'll refer back to the other number I mentioned earlier. In the programmatic space, it was about 1 in 20 audio bid requests are flagged as fraudulent. So that's certainly pretty pervasive. And again, as long as there's kind of that economic formula where the the cost of doing fraud or the cost of using bots is less than the potential payout, then there's always going to be people kind of trying to take advantage of that. So definitely, I think it will continue to be pervasive as long as those kind of overall conditions are true.
Yeah, as long as there's money to be made, unfortunately, by a fraudster.
Exactly, and that applies to pretty much anything in life, I think.
That's for damn sure. Well, thank you so much, Francis. That's just about all the time we have. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you so much for the questions. We always really appreciate when we get audience participation. I hope you learned something today. I definitely did. Francis, I feel like every time I talk to you, I learn something new. So I got to come into the office more so I could just keep learning.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. If we didn't get to your question or if you think of one afterwards, we can follow up with you directly, or you can hit the link. I believe we'll be posting it in the chat for more questions. And also just be sure to stay vigilant out there. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Francis, and thank you to everyone for joining us. See you all later.